On the escalator again.
Leave it alone.
What?
Comics.
What are you?
I'm Batman.
TV and movies. Wrestling. Music.
We are just getting started!
Finally, a podcast about things you actually care about, hosted by a couple of guys who actually care about those things too.
What? Did we just become best friends? Yep.
Maybe a little too much.
Yes, that's awesome.
The talented one, Chris Machete.
That no-talent ass clown became famous.
And Brenton, you know, that guy from your other favorite podcast.
I liked it. I was good at it.
So grab onto the handrail and don't let go.
Get ready! There's a little boy caught the escalator!
This is the Kids on the Escalator podcast.
Woo!
Here's CM and BD.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The show is about to begin.
Hello.
Yo, what's going on, man? What's happening?
Let's dedicate this episode to Dr. Johnny Fever Howard Hessman.
That's right. You better do your
he has
Dr.
been- I like
Johnny again. You got to do it again.
I did my Johnny. What'd you say?
You got to do it again.
No, I can't do it again. That's a one-time thing because I didn't even know he was going to leave us, man. I've just always wanted to do that. If you're a Facebook friend of mine, you know that my Facebook title picture has forever been Johnny Fever. And the funny thing is I have Johnny Fever and Jennifer Marlowe, Lonnie Anderson, because the thing is like my wife's name's Lonnie, and then I'm kind of like Johnny Fever. So that was the whole thing there. But man, grew up watching Johnny Fever, Howard Hessman. Peace and love, my friend. He made was 80-something years old, man. That's good. That's cool.
82 is what 82. I'm hearing. 82. Yep. So,
and he did a lot.
Rest in peace to Dr. Johnny Fever.
So this episode's dedicated to Dr. Johnny Fever. And I guess one thing I can do that I did is Booger. I didn't throw that in at the end. I was too excited to get to that song. Dun 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 dun.
Yeah. That's for Dave Fortune as well. Dave was like, "Where's the booger?" So Dave, there you go. There's your booger.
No, for sure, Dave. Yeah, it was funny because I was so excited to get to that jamming part that I totally forgot about booger. I should have ended the show with that. But and this is great. So I have been watching way more wrestling than Boba Fett and Star Wars right now. So I'm really excited about the next guest because if you know me, Brent, you know I love my classic wrestling, man. I was born in the very early 70s. So I am a Gen X student, right? Like, you know what I mean?
Way before
the very early 70s I was born. And I love it, man. So that was, I got the 80s, I'm a Gen Xer. So my wrestling was the best wrestling.
Yeah, I would agree. I came through it too, man, and it was.
No, I know, right? Sorry,
I was late to it. Not like us in Canada. We only had Maple Leaf Wrestling, and we had all these kind of
we were limited
these things, but we were limited. And that lead into WrestleMania 1, we never really got up here. We really didn't get any kind of wrestling coverage until after WrestleMania 1, maybe into WrestleMania 2, and then that just ran from like 86, 87 on in Canada. It ran. It was nuts, and it was crazy. Yeah. So we got lots to get to today. Our guest this week, unfortunately, his wife had a medical emergency last week, so we had to push, which led to a solo episode of Chris doing a breakdown of Daredevil, which did monster numbers. So everyone, thank you for listening to that and watching.
Thank you very much for watching and listening to my Daredevil episode, man. That was fun.
And I would have made Kevin Smith proud.
Yeah, I would have.
But keeping with the podcast theme and what's going on, we got a couple things we're going to get to today. Number one, we're going to have a very special guest on today. Number two, then we got two more guests joining us as normal. We got Mike and Jimmy coming on that are going to talk, join us for a little bit of a roundtable on Boba Fett after we're 5 episodes in and what's everyone feeling. And then Chris has got a wee bit of a comic announcement.
Yeah,
comic announcement.
There we go. And along with it, a great deal for the comic fan. I hate the fact that it's $7 shipping for a book. Like that blows my mind. Again, I pay it when I buy comics, and this is just in Canada. We've had people from Australia, Brent, spend $22 on shipping for one comic book.
I know.
Thank you, Australia. We're selling these comics are going to Australia. They're going to the States. Australia's the farthest it's gone. We haven't had any hits in England yet, I don't think. A bunch to the States, and thank you, my American friends, because they're paying the shipping as well. But anyway, so 3 issues, right, in Canada. One issue costs $7 shipping. You add an additional issue, it's only $1. All right, that's how the mail system works. So I'm going to have a deal. So you buy issue 1, 2, and the new issue 3, and it's only going to cost you $10 shipping.
There you go.
All right, $10 shipping on 3 books, so you can get all 3 of the books. You're only paying $1 shipping on 2 of them.
One,
There's the one. There's the
2,
2.
3.
And here comes number 3. Yeah.
On the
So
way.
this one is funny. And this one's all about wrestling. Perfect timing. This is about the wrestler El Terrifico and how he's taken over the Kingston Pen. And it's funny, dude. It is like, what do they call it? It's like a dark comedy.
Yeah.
And that's when these characters are in the book, that's what you're going to expect, is some dark comedic stuff, because they're wrestlers, man. And they're funny. And they are a little bit possessed. So there's some heads that are going to be ripped off and such.
Without further ado, we have a guy coming on here who's gracious with his time.
Yes.
His dad.
I'm stoked.
We're going to get into the ranking system here. But to me, is ranks in the top 5 greatest heels of all time. Okay. Top 5. And that 5 switches up and down depending on what YouTube video you watch that day. But it switches all the way around. He is host of the Some Kind of Wonderful podcast with Travis Orndorff, which he will break down what it's all about, but it's an amazing concept. Well, let's bring to the table Travis Orndorff, son of the late great Paul, Mr. Wonderful Orndorff. How are you, sir?
Yo, welcome to the show, buddy.
Yo.
Yes.
Yo. Man,
That's awesome,
good
man.
Evening. Just so you know, I'm 43 years old. It's 8:10 p.m. on Eastern Standard Time, and I'm so proud of myself for being awake.
Nice, buddy. Nice.
I'm proud that I'm no longer the youngest person on the panel. So
Fair enough.
There we go, sir.
I'm clearly, like, we all have glasses.
That's right.
And I don't know if y'all have had glasses all your life, but
no,
I me neither. So it was like 3 years or 4 years ago. I told somebody I had to buy my first Bible in like large print. And I was like, this is when I knew I was old, is that I had to get, I had to order my book in the large print and still wear glasses to read it.
Next, you'll just be listening to it.
You were gracious with your time, and obviously, we won't get into detail. We had a little bit of an emergency last week, and I thank you for coming back on this week. And
all good.
I really
You're
appreciate
here now, buddy.
the time, and I hope everything.
Yeah,
is
for sure. I'll be honest with you. My wife got COVID, and so it was like 7:30 p.m. last Monday, and she's like, "I got to go to the emergency room." And so she's retired Air Force. She's a veteran. And so we ended up at the hospital last Monday night. And eventually she got home about 2:30 in the morning. And so we're again, thank you for being so gracious. I mean, I'm sure I know you guys understand, but still appreciated.
We're family, man. We get it. Well, dude, I'll tell you what, man. As I was saying earlier, I grew up in the early 70s, early 70s. And man, I didn't grow up liking Hulk Hogan. I didn't grow up liking Hulk Hogan. The whole, do your vitamins and say your prayers. I was a little heavy metal kid. I was like, no, I don't. Roddy Piper was my guy. I had the hot rod shirt. I was the one guy who didn't like Hulk Hogan in my whole area, right? So there was Piper and Orndorff. They were together, Mr. Wonderful and the hot rod. Yeah. And I was mentioning earlier the best though. One of my favorite moments. I'd say top 2 favorite moments in wrestling growing up was the turn that Mr. Wonderful did on Hulk Hogan in the center of the ring. I remember he had the white shorts on, and younger, I didn't see it coming. And I'm thinking, oh man, I can exactly, buddy. I'm thinking I liked him better when he was a villain, when he was a heel, and then he clotheslined it. I'm like, yes, we win, and we got him back to the dark side, right? Again, I was a big Darth Vader fan, so. Man, really honored to have you on the show. There he is right there, my friend. Those could be the white shorts he was wearing when he turned on Hogan.
It was.
And there he's getting pissed off at him. I love when he get mad and he's like slick the ropings. Oh, man. I'm a huge fan of the heels, and he was by far one of the best, my friend.
Well, and I appreciate that. And just so you know, if there's one thing my dad really, really enjoyed, it was people hating him. Mm-hmm. That's so contrary to our identity in today's world. Like, imagine if you did your Instagram page or your YouTube page on dislikes. Like, that's what my dad did. His entire identity was built on dislikes.
He gauged his career on how much people hated him.
Absolutely.
Right?
He loved it. And I remember, and I felt this it's funny how you grow up and you hear these stories and things that have nothing to do with wrestling. They have everything to do with life. But my dad would always tell me, Travis, if you leave a situation and nobody even cares that you were there, did you make an impact? And he would later say, no matter if I was hated or loved, you remembered me. And that was his mentality. If I'm going to walk in a room, I'm going to make an impact, good or bad. You may hate what I say or love what I say, but I'm going to make an impact. And I think through his career, and if you really, really dig in and make the time to have the conversations with the wrestlers, most of them don't talk about his time in the ring. They talk about the conversations they had outside the ring. That was my dad's greatest gift.
Nice.
Yeah, I'll never forget that Steve Austin said that the number one thing he ever learned from my dad was my dad told him that there's life after wrestling. And so when I think about my father in wrestling, I think about him as a patriarch, and I think about him as a trainer. I don't think about him as a wrestler. I should, but I did. That's just not what I saw, because I was, again, I was born in 78. My brother was 10 years younger. My dad started wrestling, I think, in 1974. So by the time he was in, WWF, I was like, 5 or 6 years old. I didn't have the understanding I did later in life when he was managing the power plant.
I see.
Right.
Yeah.
The WCW, that was the WCW training facility back then.
Correct.
Right.
And your dad's in 3 Hall of Fames as well, isn't he?
That's correct. He's in the Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame, the WWF Hall of Fame, and the Amateur Wrestling Hall of Fame. And University of Tampa Hall of Fame.
Right. Yeah. Big football player growing up.
Dude.
And he made Tampa famous. I mean,
Mean.
he made Tampa famous because, one of the things about those wrestlers being introduced back then was, where are they all from? And a lot of guys were Bret Hart talks about, well, we're going to make you from something. You're going to be cowboy this or cowboy that. And he goes, no, I want to be from Calgary. And they're like, well, you're from Canada. No one's going to care. And he goes, well, that's where I'm from. And I always distinctly remember Mr. Wonderful being very specifically from Tampa, Florida.
Which he's not. He's from Winchester, Virginia. So
it's so funny he put it on the map.
Yeah, but so my dad's father was a butcher in Winchester, Virginia. Got moved down to Tampa. Dad moved down with him, and then they got divorced. And so he lived in a trailer park across the street from the trailer park that his mom lived in. So that was my dad's upbringing. He grew up in hell, like true hell, like things that most people see on Netflix in a limited series. That was my dad's life. That's what he grew up with. So it was much more difficult than I think people would truly understand. And I would also go back to him being Mr. Wonderful will always be his cathartic way of dealing with the tragedy that he dealt with growing up. So he became Mr. Wonderful to protect himself, if that makes sense.
That's crazy.
How do you get the name Mr. Wonderful? Do you know?
Yeah, I do. As a matter of fact, so it was from Afa and Sika. So he had, he was a branded bull, which was PO. Then he was OP, which was outpatient. That's what that stood for, because they said he was crazy inside the ring. And then Afa and Sika called him Mr. Wonderful, and then Roddy called him Mr. Wonderful for the first time on that Piper's Pit, and then that stuck. That was it. And so Olivia, Mr. Wrestling 2's wife, did his trunks, did his robes, and after Afa and Sika called him that was it. Like that was. Because he was a prima donna. Like I joke around, but I was on my podcast a couple weeks ago and talking to Roddy Piper's daughter, and she was talking about her dad going to get his get a pedicure. And I'm like, my dad took me to get my first pedicure because that was my dad. Like, he took care of himself in ways I don't think modern men would think of and still be so manly.
Everyone's taking care of themselves now, though.
Oh
Now
yeah.
it's,
Like
you know.
now, I remember I was in the late 90s. I was shaving my body and they, wearing tight clothes. They called me a metrosexual. And I was like, I think I'm dressed like a wrestler. Like, I don't know if you know it, but this is what they dress like,
Right.
So it's just funny to get that perspective of how people perceive the manliness of wrestling versus the reality of their lifestyle.
Yeah. Now, being a heel back in the day, they the kayfabe, they took it with them everywhere. They basically, evil wrestlers took the heat with them everywhere they went in life. Do you have any stories on some fans or some crazy people that took your dad a little too seriously?
Oh,
I know
man,
you probably got a
that's
million of
list.
them. You gotta zero in on one?
Dude, there's a list.
I bet there
seriously,
is.
like from kids that hated me from when I was a young kid. But I think the most relevant story that I remember was, and I'm positive we were in Philadelphia. I don't remember the run, but I know the run was he was wrestling Hogan, and they put us in the back of an ambulance and covered our heads, and we drove down the street to the car we had already parked, and somebody tipped off the fans, and the fans came down and they tried to tip our car over, and I was in the floorboard of the car. My dad like stuffed me down the floorboard of the car and was like, do not move. I'm like, move? There's nowhere to go. And the car was trying to get tipped over, and the police initially were like came in with the shields, and they got them to back off, and then we got out of town, drove to the next town, and then it was the same thing the next night because he wrestled and he pissed so many people off that by the time we were leaving, they were looking for him.
Wow.
Like, people thought it was real.
Yes.
Like, truly believed my dad was that guy. And ironically, the take your vitamins and say your prayers guy was actually the opposite, and my dad was that guy. Right. He was the guy that said his prayers and took his vitamins. That's who my dad was. But inside the ring, he was a heel. He was a bad guy, and he owned it, and he loved it. Loved
He was so good at it, dude.
There-
So you mentioned, did you like when you went to school, did it depend on whether your dad was a heel or a face as to how the kids treated you? Like,
not necessarily, because I was so young, and so you're thinking 83 to say 93. My dad was not, like, I was 5-6 years old, so I was in kindergarten, in the first grade.
right. So you didn't feel the brunt of it.
Correct. I had people that had those conversations like later on in life, but it wasn't the majority. And I went to private school. My dad made a point. So I didn't have the same experiences I think I would have had I lived in, say, Tampa. But I lived in Atlanta, and nobody knew any different.
One of my favorite quotes from the documentaries I watched was your dad said, he was just talking about how he was taking care. He says, I get paid well. I do my job well. And he says, here's the main thing. He said, if you're going to take me away from my kids, he says, you're going to pay me well. And he says, and he looks at the camera, he says, and they did. And I just love that comment. It seemed like that was really important to him. And that was one of the moments that stuck with me out of all the documentaries and interviews I watched of him, man. Really cool.
He looked at money as a way of taking care of his family.
I got that vibe. Totally.
Yeah, it wasn't one or the other. Nope. And he, I believe he didn't come to that conclusion until later in life. But when he realized what was important to him, it became a factor. So when he was young, I think he would have sold his soul to the devil. In fact, there was some of his promos said he would sell his mom down the river for a paycheck. And I think when you're in your early 20s, that is exactly what you would do. And then you get older and go, oh, you're going to pay me for my time, or I'm not going to do it.
Right.
And Travis,
plus, he worked hard to that point.
I got a question for you on, okay, so a few things around that time when Chris, when we were discussing about, you know, growing up in that era. So there was no bigger show at that point, really, than the Saturday Night's Main Event. Now every Monday Night Raw is a Saturday Night's Main Event. Now it's sort of like every week there's a you know, some big event or something, but Saturday Night's Main Event was a big deal, and we look forward to it as kids. And the single, probably one of the most memorable moments ever, to go with what Chris was saying, was the split of Hogan and Paul. And then, you know, obviously we had the CNE in Toronto, which was this big thing
Look at
for
that.
us, you know, which was crazy at the time. That was pre WrestleMania 6 or anything like that. That was like,
Toronto
I
kids.
didn't get a chance to go to that. But then it led to this, the most, probably at that time, I would say the most famous cage match in the history of wrestling.
That is
At least for WWE, removing NWA and all that stuff aside, because Flair and all them had their own thing. But for WWE at the time, with the blue cage and everything, I don't believe there was a bigger cage match at the time, even bigger than Bundy and Hogan at 2. This was Hogan and Orndorff at Saturday Night's Main Event with the very famous double touch on the ground. And it was, you know, Jesse Ventura screaming and yelling and doing the whole thing about, no, he touched first. And it was just so controversial. And it was like the biggest time for your dad's life. How old were you right around then?
Oh gosh, like 7 or 8 years old.
Were you aware? Were you aware of the impact that it was at that point? Because it was massive. There was no bigger bad guy in the world than your father at that time.
I remember reading an article in the paper, and I want to say it was the New York Times, and this is me going to school, like as a young kid going to school, and we had the paper in the car because my dad got all the papers, and I remember reading that my dad was the most hated man in America. But here's the and this is in the New York Times. They also put it in the Pro Wrestling Illustrated and whatnot. But how do you explain it to somebody if you weren't around him? So as a kid, him being hated, I knew that he was doing a great job. Like he was doing his job. So when I saw wrestling, I saw it as a job. I never saw it as entertainment. And if I could get anybody to understand that perspective, then they would understand why I have the conversations I have about wrestling, because I never saw it as anything other than a business, even at a very early age. My dad taught me, if you will, the ropes, but you know, he helped me understand this is what the reality is, that I'm not really getting hurt. Here's really the plan. You know, this is what it looks like. And then I got to ask him questions about why he didn't have a title, or, you know, so forth and so on. But no, I think that if you understood my background, you would know that I only know this as a business. It was never anything as far as entertainment. It was never entertaining to me. So when I think about the wrestling match for Saturday Night's Main Event with my dad, like that was kind of it's like a piece of the puzzle in a timeline of his career that I can relate to, simply because of the experiences I would have because of the reactions of other people.
It was amazing. I love it when a heel is in the zone, when you're the greatest heel, and you can see it happening minorly right now. I don't even know if there's anybody more hated in current wrestling than the MJF. And it's just like, well, he's an old school heel. He yells at the fans. His Facebook account right now is the greatest thing you've ever seen. He's just trolling everybody. He's like, oh, maybe I'll take Vince up on his offer and I'll come to the Royal Rumble. It's like, come on, it's the best. So there was no social.
He trolled everybody.
He drove everybody. Yeah, and there was no social media then, so it was like you had to get him on your 35 to 45 second promo. It was quite something, and your dad is, to me, one of the best when it comes to that side of it. You know,
for sure.
One of the questions I wanted to get to on this was: did he personally achieve what he set out to do, or was there something left? Like, was the WWE Championship ever eluded him and he really wanted it, or it was never leaving Hogan, or when he's, or WCW, or was there something he didn't accomplish, or did he feel satisfied with his career?
So I will break that down into two parts. The first part is I think he always wanted the title. And I say I know for a fact he thought he should have had the title. The second part of that question is that when he left wrestling, he left in the late 80s and he was hurting in so much pain. It's like people forget how old he was in comparison to other wrestlers during the WrestleMania 1-2. He was 6 years older than Roddy and Hulk Hogan, which doesn't seem like a lot, but if you're 32 versus 26, you can understand what that feels like and how different that is. So knowing that Dad always thought he was ahead of his time, he could have done so much more had he been given the opportunity. And what athlete thinks they did enough? I mean, for God's sakes, Tom Brady has done enough. And go down the line, the guys did way less than him, but they did enough. I don't think my dad ever felt like he did enough, but that's just being a man with an ego.
It's it's got to be a mind, to give it up, and have to give it up and move on to the next phase of your life. I think you touched on it earlier, saying, he told Steve that there's a life after wrestling. So what was that life after wrestling for him?
Man, a lot of hunting. Yeah. And a lot of time with his grandkids, and he regretted a lot of his decisions, but when he got older, he really centered himself and spent time with the people he cared about. So once he retired, he was all in on family, and so it might have not looked like what other people's family looked like, but he spent time with his grandkids, and from what I can tell, he enjoyed the last, I would say, 15 years of his retirement, which was special for me because I got to spend time with him.
Yeah. Chris, what was your favorite moment? You said it was when he turned on Hogan. Do you have it? What's your other Orndorff highlights in your?
I forgot the cage match was sensational. That was really, really well played, and the timing to do that from the top and to walk out, that was really good. Both wrestlers put on a really good show, I thought, for that one. That was the thing I didn't like about Hogan, is I really didn't think he was a great wrestler. And there's guys like Mr. Wonderful that was like, oh, that guy I bet he could kick his ass back in the back room. And from rumor has it, he could have kicked a lot of people's asses in the back room. I liked his whole shtick with Roddy, because, as I mentioned, Roddy Piper was my favorite wrestler from when I was younger. I don't know why. I think I just liked his demeanor and the way he talked. He was very entertaining, I thought. So I was gonna ask, did you have any stories of your dad, Roddy Piper, you could share with us?
Oh, for sure. So Roddy was, without a doubt, the best talker in the history of wrestling, without question. Like, the best. And there were some great ones. Ric Flair was a great one, but Roddy, The Rock, for example, so great. But Roddy could talk. So my story with Roddy would be, more of my experience of running into him at the Hall of Fame in 2005, I think, and he was just a sweetheart. And he was always a sweetheart. And I think that's what I want you guys to really understand about these wrestlers is, you see what they put on as a product, but behind the scenes, most of them were gentle giants. Right. And so Roddy was a gentle giant. He was sweet. I got to talk to his daughter on our last podcast, and it validated what I already knew, that he was just a loving and friendly man. And so that would be my story about Roddy would be about what I experienced. And I was grateful to have spent time with him.
That's great. Do you got, so do you have any, You had some personal stuff you wanted to show of your dad's as well, right? Did we do that off the beginning, or we do that?
Oh,
No, we did that behind the camera so no one
I
could
thought
see
so. I
it.
couldn't remember.
But we'll get that in a second. I just want to show one more picture of
Yeah.
Piper's Pit there.
Oh, Piper's Pit was great too, huh?
And then
I've been
Piper's
watching
Pit was
actually
the
the
best.
old.
He was the best.
Yeah, I was watching some really old NWA when he was helping commentate, and then he'd fight, and Dusty Rhodes would show up, and all of a sudden Roddy's, well, we don't know where Piper went, but Dusty Rhodes is here to do his interview, and then Dusty Rhodes would leave, and Roddy come back out, and he's like, "Oh, I just went out to sign some contracts. I'm right back." It's just so, and it was so smooth, and so that whole era, I guess that was '82. That was great. I just amazing stuff. Brings back really good memories for me. But the whole just getting into wrestling with the mainstream of it and it becoming popular. You go to school and you start to talk about it. At the age I was at, the WrestleMania one was huge, and I couldn't watch it, but I was aware that it was going on. It was like after school, like it's tonight or it's going on or the week. It's this weekend, and then you can't wait to hear the results. But I was the one kid that was cheering for Piper and Orndorff, and everybody's like, "What are you kidding me?" It's like, "Yeah, man," but it's Mr. T. It's like Mr. T shouldn't even be in there. Here's little me mentality thinking Mr. T's a boxer because he was in the Rocky movie. So little me's thinking he's a boxer. Why is he even fighting in here like this? This isn't right. And again, I'm thinking like, okay, you got Mr. T who isn't a wrestler. You got Hulk Hogan, who in my opinion, wasn't a good wrestler, against, Roddy Piper, who I think is the greatest wrestler and is his best partner ever, the best tag team with Mr. Wonderful Orndorff. So growing up to that was amazing for me. That's just highlight after highlight for that kind of thing.
I think it was for so many people. I think we all connected in a different way, and understand that there were guys that root for the good guy and there were guys that rooted for the bad guy.
Yeah.
But they saw the good guy as the bad guy. And that was a unique time.
Yeah.
Understand that like at that period of time, everybody hated the Sheik. When Hogan won the title from him. So there were so many people that rooting for Mr. Wonderful and Roddy Piper was against the norm.
Yeah.
Like that is not what you did until that. Like who rooted for a heel before my dad and Roddy?
Right.
I'm not saying they didn't.
No,
but I don't know
I'm
anybody
gonna
that
look
did.
into that. That is a really good point, my friend. Yeah.
Did you have no choice but to be a wrestling fan, or were you a wrestling fan the whole time, Travis, or did you
that's a
actually
good
have to
question.
be? Did you have to become a wrestling fan because your dad was a wrestler, or were you just like, I don't like it? Like where were you on it?
So that's a long question.
It's a tough questions here, buddy. It's a tough question.
It is because I respect the sport. I respect the athleticism. I respect the individuals. But when you've seen behind the curtain, the magic isn't as real. Not to say it's not, an illusion, but it's not as fun to watch. So for me, I lost interest at an early age for two reasons. Number one, because I needed to know it was fake because I was scared my dad would get hurt.
Right.
So that's number one. Number two was I talked to these guys. They were so normal in an everyday conversation. So for them to go, like I got to talk to them 10 minutes after a promo and I understood that they were playing a game. And so I was part of it. And whether it was intentional or unintentional, it was part of the game. So when these guys went out and did that, I was rooting for them to be the character they played to be. And I wanted them to do their best. But like at the end of the day, I knew who they were. And anything that they said outside of that was irrelevant. Because no offense to them, my dad's Mr. Wonderful. like how famous are you? No offense, but like I know who my dad is. So I don't need your approval. And so just be yourself. And that was, again, for me, for it wasn't that it wasn't a fan. I rooted for them to be successful. I'll give you an example. Paul White, the Big Show. His photos before he became a wrestler were sitting on my fireplace.
Oh,
And
you're
my
kidding.
dad was looking at him, and he was playing a character, Paul Bunyan. And it was all, he had the, the red plaid and all that.
Mhm.
So I got to see him go from obscurity, from sitting on a picture in my living room and watching tape of him on VHS to you knowing him as the Big Show. So for
Yeah.
me, I see him as a child, not in a bad way, not like like he's childish, but I saw him go from nothing to something, and my dad saw that in him. I remember him sitting down with me and my best friend Kevin saying, "If you want to become a wrestler, you better become a freak. This guy's got it. I
Wow.
see it.
Yeah.
He got it." So that's my idea of wrestling, is obscurity of individuals, sitting in a picture on my fireplace or on my dining room table that eventually became the top wrestlers of the of this generation.
Yeah. Is there any others that come to mind like that, like Paul White?
Oh gosh. Triple H. I know my dad talked to him. I had several conversations with Steve Austin before he moved from WCW to WWF. Several like that. And again, I got to sit in on those conversations. To say I was, lucky enough to be privy to them would be an understatement.
Yeah.
It's quite something. Now you've got some memorabilia, as Chris mentioned, about some stuff from your dad's career that you wanted to show us here.
Yeah, for
over
sure.
his life.
So this is WrestleMania 1 wrestling tights.
Wow.
So these tights right there.
There they
That
are.
would be it.
Yeah, look at that.
That would be it. So I know a lot of people have asked if I'm willing to sell this stuff. The answer is no. But yeah, I've got those. And then and so understand, my dad was a star athlete in everything he did. So this is his baseball glove from,
Wow.
and you see the PPO, which is Paul Parlett Orndorff.
Yeah, it's awesome. Very
Amazing.
cool.
How often do you get a
Very
chance to you've got the new show, so we'll dive into that. You've
Yeah.
got this brand new show called Some Kind of Wonderful. Why don't you let us know what that's all about, because it sounds like a really great concept.
Mhm.
So it's just conversations. It really is. It's just me having fun with people that come from the wrestling business, but not wrestlers, just their children. So I had a conversation with Roddy Piper's daughter, Tito Santana's daughter, Eric Bischoff's son, and I've got a couple people lined up over the next few months. So we're just having conversations about what it's like to grow up in that stratosphere, and how they navigated some of the the stuff that comes with it. And forgive me, my voice is going, but the last conversation with Fallon, Piper's daughter, was so insightful, and it was meaningful, and
Nice.
it's so much deeper than just wrestling. It's about the humanity of these individuals and what they grew up with, what they dealt with, and then what they passed down to their children.
Wow, that's really interesting. I really like that. That sounds great.
And there's a lot of
something to-
children. There's a lot of wrestling
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
children.
We've had one illegitimate child so far, so we're at 25%.
Well, there's so many, and there's the stories, right? Like growing up Hart and growing up Orton, and the funny thing about growing up or having a podcast that you're talking about where you interview wrestling kids. Well, you could interview Randy Orton because technically he's a wrestling kid.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
technically I could. And for me, it was never about getting famous. It's about for me, it's really about getting some closure and
Nice.
understanding. And
Yeah.
so when I was talking to Piper's daughter, I remember thinking, this is what I needed to understand my place in this world and somewhat of my purpose. So I'm grateful. We've had some fun with it, and we got more to come. And
Nice.
it's not about celebrity. It's more about understanding what celebrity looks like behind the scenes. Like, I'm very open about my brother's struggles with, prison and jail from the time I was very young. So, his story is about him failing to, follow through on my dad's, expectations. But for me, it's different, but it's the same. If that, I don't know how else to say it. It's like, it's like we experience the same thing so different. We thought of fame so different. For me, my dad never wanted me to pursue it. For my brother, he was like, do the best you can. It was just different.
Do you have a dream guest of someone that you would like to have on your show that you'd really like to talk to and get inside their head a bit?
Oh gosh. Honestly, I think my dream one was Piper's daughter.
Right.
Because that to me was always his closest, connection in his fame. So, Piper's daughter was probably my dream guest, but getting to interview Garrett Eric's son, like that was a great conversation for me. So I want to say each of them is my favorite, just because I think that's how much I enjoyed each of those conversations individually. So if I had I'll tell you this, if I had a dream conversation, it would be with Junkyard Dog's daughter.
Oh, okay.
Only because he was my favorite wrestler, and I
Right.
remember traveling with him, and he was such a sweetheart. So,
Yeah.
I guess I do have one.
Right on. Yeah, I've been watching a lot of like I draw for a living, so I sit there and put endless things of wrestling on if I'm into that for the week, and I watch and draw. And I've seen a lot of the kids, like the Von Erich's kids, Chris Benoit's son, and a lot of them were the stories they could tell could have been a whole show in their own, and some of them the mental stress that goes on is crazy. Like, your dad seemed very mentally strong. He seemed it, like, just from what I've watched. Any input on mental stress on that kind of situation?
He may have seemed strong, but
did,
I
yeah.
can tell you he struggled.
Ah,
He struggled tremendously, but he, in comparison to the wrestlers that you're speaking of, he was extremely strong. So it may be a fallacy or a paradox that he was stronger than everybody else, but so weak.
right.
And he knew it. But I remember thinking about and me and him having conversations about drugs and steroids and different things. He always was very honest with me, but he knew his limits, and he knew if he went past X, Y, and Z, then it was a really bad deal, right? And so we saw that play out in several wrestlers' lives. Like, he was crazy, but crazy to a certain extreme where he knew he couldn't go past that line. Whatever that line was, he knew what it was and where it was at.
Right.
Well, to me, will go down and will be remembered as one of the greatest of all time and one of the greatest heels of all time. Where do you think he ranks amongst the greatest heels of all time?
Don't ask me questions like that. You already know the answer. There is no question. This is the dumbest question you could have ever asked on your program.
Mr.
All due
Wonderful.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Without question, the top 5 is Mr. Wonderful. Second place is Mr. Wonderful. Third place is Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff.
There you go.
Fourth place is Paul Mr. Wonderful Orndorff. And then fifth place is Paul Orndorff, Mr. Wonderful.
Yeah.
So the greatest heels of all time, and the reason I say that, and I'm joking around to an extent, but I'm not really. There was a point in time where 20% of the people would love you and 80% would hate you, but love you for hating you. And it switched. I think about the NWO, where people wanted to be the bad guy. My dad was a bad guy when nobody wanted to be a bad guy. And even the people that hated him loved him and respected him for being a great villain. So if you want to compare myself or my, excuse me, if you want to compare my father to any heel, he was the most hated of all time that was the most adored. And that's just my opinion. He was an adored villain. They were hoping he would come out. People were rooting for Andre. People were rooting for Steve Austin. People were rooting for The Rock. Nobody really rooted for my dad, but they loved that he was out there doing his part. So you tell me a better villain, and I might listen. I might even explore it. But when I think about the dynamic of how much they hated him but loved him for it, that to me is what is irreplaceable.
And he could wrestle too. There's a lot of guys like
Oh, his talent was incredible.
Right. So that was the one thing that struck me about those guys. As I mentioned, like the WrestleMania was the biggest event in that was a farce to me because it was like, this is not even a contest. But the storylines back then,
the greatest finishing move. What's better than the pile driver? Jesus.
Yeah,
Like,
well, the pile driver's
the
great,
best-
right? Like that's
the
what I'm saying.
best
Like you got the
ever.
pile driver, you got the leg drop. I'll take the pile driver in a heartbeat. And plus,
All
he did it
day.
so well, though.
And his pile driver, he would actually leap up. He made a point to get off his feet. So if you look at the tombstone that Undertaker did, like he dropped down to his knees. DDT, you drop down. My dad is the one that did the effort to sell the move every single time. And so when you saw him do it, he sold it. The other guy just had to not break his neck.
Yes, yeah. It's an actual pile driver. Like he didn't just fall forward. You poof.
We got a couple fellas coming in that are
Hey guys, welcome to the party.
Talk a little wrestling. Mike over here on the other side with the
Boom.
Oh, look at this. What's he got there? Oh, you went to go get. Speaking.
Oh,
of
he's got the Orndorff figure. Oh, beautiful.
There he is.
Mike is fresh.
Somebody sent me a message the other day that said that every other figure next to my dad's looked like Homer Simpson.
You'd have to go, Mike. You probably got them all. You'd have to go get them. You know.
Yeah, I had a good chunk of them, but man, we used to play a game. Actually, well, Adam and I would play Guess the Pose, and all you had to do was this, and you knew it was Mr. Wonderful, and he could throw like this was the best shaped figure because these guys were the solid rubber ones. You could do a suplex, you could do a clothesline, best posed figure yet. So.
Mike's just back from the Royal Rumble. Actually, he took a trip to St. Louis and went and got himself a little bit of fun. And we got Jimmy here from the Jedi Jimmy podcast. Jimmy, how are you, sir? Welcome back to the show.
How's it going?
Good. This is Travis Orndorff. We are talking about the greatness of his late father, Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, on today's show. But we are going to switch over to some Star Wars talk. But before we get into that, Travis, thanks again for all of your time. Let's let everybody know about your brand new podcast. You're going to stick around for the Star Wars chat, but tell us a little bit about where they can find it and all that stuff.
For sure. Thank you so much. So we got Some Kind of Wonderful, which is exactly the Instagram page. And it's literally just us having a good time talking to wrestlers' kids. And it'll expand. You know how it is. You start with one direction, get enough information, and then explore other avenues. So also we've got Mr. Wonderful Official, which is MR1DERFUL official at Instagram.com. So we got a few things going and we're having a lot of fun with it. But just to nerd out real quick, and thank you for having me on the podcast. So grateful.
No problem.
Let me just ask you up front, is anybody understanding how and why the Darksaber is so much heavier depending on the move the general movement of the person wielding it? So that's my next question.
We'll get into the dark side. I'm sure, there's no one, Jimmy, who's on the bottom there. He's got a podcast called Jedi Jimmy that's actually blown up in Canada and become like a huge top 5 podcast in science fiction. And which I'm pretty sure is because he appeared on this show and then it just launched him into oblivion.
Leaking.
But Jimmy, you got the moves, man. You're going to put on lightsaber demonstration on the Blundell program soon, aren't you?
What I'm doing is in my next group of the Jedi Jimmy podcast, I actually plan on demonstrating all the forms, lightsaber forms from 1 to 7.
That's amazing. Now
That is
Travis.
wow.
Travis had a question about why is the Darksaber so much heavier than the rest of them, and it can't be used.
The reason it is actually they talk about it in the Rebels, is because of the fact that they don't have control over their emotions. As soon as they deal with their demons and get over that, because when they were talking about it in the Rebels, Kanan talked to Sabine, who was trying to learn how to use the lightsaber. And the more she got over what was holding her back emotionally, then she was able to control the lightsaber, and it wasn't quite so heavy. And that is partly because of the fact that it was made by a Mandalorian who was already full of emotion when he became a Jedi. So he had to learn how to control the emotions, and that's why it's so much different than the other lightsabers.
And it's weird how Maul had no problem lifting it, like in the cartoon series. He had no problem lifting
because he had total control over his emotions. He was
Right?
full of anger and hate. He knew who he was, where he came from, and he accepted all of it.
Yeah, wouldn't it be cool to see him come back? Like, I see some even as a flashback, man. I'd love to see what Filoni would do with that character, because I thought he was such a great character and so poised, though, right, Jimmy? Like, just the dude is so focused, and he had a brother too, right, Savage? That would be really cool to see the two of them come together. But that was the thing about Darth Maul, is he was the most focused guy out of all of them, I thought, and there was so much. There wasn't all this extra stuff with Maul.
Yeah, but he also. There's no way they're going to bring him back because they legit killed him at the end.
Oh, no, flashback. No, everybody says that to me. Flashback.
Yeah.
Give me a flashback. No, everybody says that to me. Everybody, yeah, I know that. But flashback, man. We've had tons of flashbacks. Maybe in Obi-Wan we'll see a flashback of Maul. That would be cool because they hated each other. That would be great.
Yeah,
but Obi-Wan killed him.
It was actually Obi-Wan who killed him.
Yeah, and it was a very touching scene, eh, buddy? That was brilliant. So it wasn't even a fight. There was no fight to it. Obi-Wan took him out. Boom.
Yeah.
Done.
Travis, I'm not sure if you're that far in, but you're going to be that far in when you're done with this. I'll tell you that. So one of the things, we're 5 episodes in. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago about, our thoughts leading into 1 and 3 and where it was going to go. We are at episode 5. We've the joke online is that they needed to bring the Mando back to save it, but I don't believe that is the case. I just thought it was another backstory tale, which I loved, in my opinion. So we are 5 episodes in. Let's we're going to go around the horn here. We'll do it however we can do it. Let's start with our guest of honor today, Travis. Start with you. What do you think of the Book of Boba Fett so far?
So, 2-part answer is, if anybody expected that the Book of Boba Fett would be able to capture the allure of the Mandalorian, then you set yourself up for failure, because the Matrix 1 was always greater than the Matrix 2, no matter what, unless the Matrix 2 came out first. So the Book of Boba Fett, in my opinion, is exploring what we've all wanted to understand about the Star Wars, canon, and in my opinion, they've interweaved those worlds, and the way they played it out, some of the characters they've introduced, and I just think it's amazing. I to know that Jon Favreau has built this out. He's a genius. Going back to the day of him directing Swingers to now the fact that when I see executive producer Jon Favreau, I go, I want to watch it. I don't care what he's connected to. I want to watch it. So I think the quality and the attention to detail they've given has been truly amazing, like genuinely amazing. And they've done so much service to Star Wars after the debacle of 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9. Period. They to me have restored the franchise.
Don't mention 9 around Chris Machete. We know what happened.
9, well, which one was 9? Was that the one where they pissed all over Luke Skywalker?
No, that was 8. Rise of Skywalker.
Rise of Skywalker.
Okay.
Mike, your turn. What do you think? 5 episodes in. How you doing?
Okay. Don't turn me off, Brent. Don't turn me off. I'm okay with it now. I mean, we've talked about this before. I think the pacing of this one, because you were expecting a certain way that they were going to present Book of Boba Fett based on how they presented Mandalorian, and the pacing in the Mandalorian moved better than Boba Fett has so far. I mean, the first 4 episodes kind of dragged. 5, excellent. Why? Because they went back to the formula that was working in the Mandalorian. So again, I read an interesting thing online today where they were talking about how the reason why the Book of Boba Fett is maybe not being received as well is because it's doing what Disney has done. When they brought out Mandalorian, it was new. It was not tied to, what people knew or expected of Star Wars and old characters. It wasn't focused on that. It's that whole take 1 step back, 2 steps forward. Rogue One, pretty similar. A lot of people really liked Rogue One because it wasn't really sort of in that whole Star Wars, bubble. Book of Boba Fett, now you're tied to this, this classic character who originally, I liked him because he was quiet. You didn't know much about him. He was mysterious. He was sort of like a side character, but now the deeper they explore him, now you're getting, it's almost like you're trying too hard to make it something. And I think it's the Disney way, rather than take a chance like Rian Johnson did. Had he done all 3 films, might have been really cool. But the fact that you put him in between the nostalgic J.J. Abrams vision, it completely flopped. So 5 episodes in, the fact that they had to go to Mando to save the series,
I don't think they had to, Mike. I just think it's part of the thing. Honestly, I don't know. Chris,
I think it's a bigger picture too. You guys talked me into this. My new theory, you guys talked me into it last time, is I think we're seeing the end of Boba Fett here. He's trying to make grace before he dies here, man. I'm hoping we see more connection to his dad, Jango Fett, because he's having some flashback to back to his dad flying away, man. I'd really like to see some more of that. But I think that he said himself, this is a new Boba Fett. And I think he's winding down. He's trying to make peace with himself before he dies, and he's going to let Fennec Shand run things after. But I think we're seeing the end of Boba Fett here. I think this is the untimely end of my old friend, I think. And I think Fennec Shand is going to take his spot. That's what I'm thinking. It just could go that way. I'd be happy with it going that way, but I think we're watching the slow demise of Boba Fett. And I think he's doing it for a reason, and we're going to find it later. And what do you think of that, Jimmy? What do you think's going on there, buddy?
I think what's going to end up happening is the reason they brought in Mandalorian is this is going to be a war of the bounty hunters against a bunch of gangsters. So, you have an army, like, think about it. They built an army off of one bounty hunter. The Empire's army was based on one person. Now you have all these people that are trained to track and kill, going against soldiers who are mostly trained in this universe to defend. So this is going to like, they're bringing in more. By the end of this, you're going to see Bosk. You're going to see possibly IG-88. We're going to see Forlom. These are all bounty hunters that Boba Fett has worked with before. And this is going to be assassins versus soldiers.
Travis, one last final thought on this before you jet. I know that it's been a busy week for you, so we'll let you get out of here.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, buddy. Really appreciate you.
No, thank you so much. I'm sorry. My wife just texted me and said, "Come get this," and I don't even know what this is yet. Well, I gotta do something.
You just make it happen. You just make it happen.
Yeah, so we understand. But no, thank you guys so much. I'm so grateful. I hope you'll have me on again.
100%. Everyone check out the wonderful, Some Kind of Wonderful with Travis. Definitely an amazing podcast with kids of wrestlers. Hopefully we did some justice today. Your dad was wonderful. Absolutely.
Take care, buddy. Go take care of your wife, my friend.
Hey, guys, thank you so much. God bless, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, buddy. We'll see
That's
you
the pose, man. That was the pose in that pic you just had. Fantastic.
Awesome. So one thing, Jimmy, I just wanted to ask Jimmy one more thing there. So Jimmy, what do you think is going to be the end game here? Like I was saying, like I think this is going to be the end of Boba Fett. Like that's just my dare. I love to do these daring like attempts at so many people say he's not going to die. Yes, he is. So there's got to be some kind of end game here, my friend. What do you think it's going to be?
It's going to be he's going to be Jabba the Hutt. He's going to run Tatooine.
So you think nothing's really going to change? It's just he's just going to stay the leader of.
I think he's going to do that, and he's going to have all these because the power that Jabba had was because he had. It wasn't because he was a strong dude. It's because he had all these great people behind him, and Boba Fett actually said at one point, I think it was episode 4, you can't do anything without a tribe. That's one thing he learned from
the Tuscans.
Yeah, but we've seen he had that change of heart, right? That's why I was saying that change of heart. So it's kind of his motivation.
He can't do anything alone, right? And he's going to build this tribe, and it's going to be his syndicate.
Mike, do you think he's going down? I think he's going down.
Yeah, you're not looking to no big revelations after this one, like just.
See,
I'm predicting like a major death. You know what I mean? You got any
I think he's going down. I'm going to throw it out there. If we're going to do
this big appearance of somebody at the end.
No, see, I mean, again, if I'm looking at this from a Disney Studios point of view, the response to this series so far, if I'm an executive, would be, let's do a one and done, and go from there. So in that sense, yeah, Boba will probably meet a very heroic death, possibly saving the Mando, which would be kind of cool. Especially if he's riding that Rancor, that would be.
I just got kicked out of the Mandalorians, right? Mando did. So
there's something to that. Like if they're only doing a one and done, which I kind of get that sense. But at the same time, man, they got to have one major sort of gut punch of a death. If it's not Boba, it's Fennec Shand, because Fennec is really, I mean, she's endeared herself as far as like a character that you've invested in, even if this season hasn't really explored more about her.
Hey, Mike.
I mean,
she's way younger than the guy playing Boba Fett. He's going.
Yeah, hey, Tamira is 61 years.
That's
years old.
That's wild. So you think, Mike, there's going to be a major death as well? You think
major death, and I do think we're going to see either Darth Maul or we'll see Kira.
That was my next question, because a lot of times they can save these in the last episode with this huge appearance of somebody who all the fans love, right? So Mike and then Jimmy, who do you think? First of all, who do you think they will pick to put in as a guest appearance? And secondly, who would you like to see come in for the appearance?
Go ahead, Jimmy. I got to think this one through.
I don't have to think about this. It's going to be both who I want and who I think it's going to be.
Beautiful, buddy.
There you go.
Let's hear it.
If he dies, he's going to die by one hand.
Right.
Han Solo.
Oh, there we go. Imagine that.
Because he might win the day, and then Han might come in and get his revenge for the carbonite thing. Because there was an article a while ago where Harrison Ford's he's been filming something for Star Wars, and he signed up for one project. He's still alive in this.
True.
Chewie squares off against, Black K, Han's son. This is what I'm talking about, Jimmy. This is what I want to hear. I like that. And see, that gets me excited.
Chris,
now I want to see
Chris,
that.
let me hold on. Let me go back for 1 second. So you're saying Han Solo is going to kill him off. Let's go with that. Number two.
I think he's going to take him out.
That's one. Now, remember we were
talking. The war's going to be over, and then him and Chewie are coming in and kicking ass and taking names.
So remember when we were talking in the Zahn stuff and the all those books. Now, Anakin doesn't save like the Anakin or Ben or whatever. Who's the one that doesn't save Chewie, right? Chewie dies in those books.
Yeah.
Doesn't he?
Because he's going after Ben Skywalker.
He's going after
Ben Skywalker, yeah.
And he dies because
Ben Skywalker.
Yeah, he dies. Chewie dies as a result of Han's kid, right? Yeah. So we were talking about like before about Chewie and Han died in Force Awakens, and I didn't feel like they pulled enough emotion out of it. Are they going to pull enough emotion out of this? Is that what you're going to get, Jimmy? Are you going to get that emotion out of Han killing?
We built. They built Boba Fett up, and everybody's on Boba Fett's side right now because he's, trying to make a difference, trying to be the
good, right?
the good gangster, treat with respect and not have don't fear me, but I'll respect you if you respect me. And he showed that through almost every episode. He's shown some semblance of that.
Yeah.
Looking for redemption on himself, man. Yeah. And have Han Solo walk in and be the scoundrel and just blow him away after Boba Fett works so hard to redeem himself. That would be actually, I would like that. I'd be behind that 100%. Mike, what do you got?
Yeah, that's interesting because
good job. Give me a high five, man.
I don't know. I don't know if that fits into the whole narrative of the Boba redemption story.
Right.
Like,
So
I don't
what would
know,
you like
I don't,
to see?
I don't know if Disney could do that. I would love to see, like I said, I'd love to see Kira because that would tie in Rogue One. And it seems like Book of Boba Fett has been all about bringing stuff from the other films in, like this last episode, Bryce Dallas Howard, clearly Phantom Menace was her movie as a kid growing up because of all the references from that movie in episode 5. With the N1, the fighter jets or the whatchamacallit, the speeders, whatever.
Isn't that the same one that he ends up using in Attack of the Clones? What's the one where they're shooting? Or is that the beginning of
No, that's Phantom Menace when he's
Phantom Menace. That's the same ship that Anakin used to blow up the droid control ship.
Yeah, that was
the only movie that ship was used in.
The Naboo Starfighter. That's what it was. Yeah.
Oh, there was a reference to the Naboo Starfighter when in episode 2 when Amidala flew to Coruscant and her ship got blown up by Django.
Yeah.
And I mean that like the fact that they're pushing back and pulling stuff from the other films, I think there's that tie-in somewhere in here that it would make sense if you bring in a Darth Maul. I was going to ask you, Chris, did you know like the armorer, the helmet's got the horns. Wasn't Death Watch part of Darth Maul's crew at some point?
Yeah, well, he took them over because he had the Darksaber, right? So Death Watch follows the Darksaber, so that's what happened, and he went with them.
The helmet that the armorer wears has it looks like the horns of Darth Maul. So,
but they're not the Death Watch. Those are the children of the Watch.
They changed it up. And Jon Favreau did the voice of one of the Death Watch guys, which is funny in the cartoon there.
Something not to go off a complete tangent, but the cruiser thing, I somebody put this online and it kind of made sense. Again, the Disney tie-in, that galactic cruiser that he rides on to the Mando, he has to check all his weapons, which I thought was brilliant.
Yeah, that
the
was
droid
cool.
that he deals with, that's the same droid from the Star Tours ride at Disney World. It's an R. It's the R3X or something like that. But that whole cruiser could very well be an advertisement for the new Galactic Cruise resort thing that they're doing at Disney.
Of course, toys.
It's
rides.
Back to what made the money originally, the Kenner line of stuff. So they're not stupid. So clearly somebody is figuring out, okay, there's ways we can bring in some new eyes, take advantage of this.
Well, I think Mando just made a new toy. We haven't seen it yet as well, right? He made something for Grogu there, so Mando made something. I don't know.
And I like how he wrapped it up and he's holding it, and it looks like Grogu's head, like the little package that he's.
Be cool if it's not big enough to be a helmet. It's not big enough to be a helmet, though, is it?
Yes, I think it is. I think
it big? I can't remember. I haven't seen the episode in a few days, and I can't remember the size of what it was. But there's a little Mando helmet.
It might have been big enough to be Grogu's helmet.
That would be cool. I'd like to see that.
But again, back to what I was saying about episode 5, it just, I know what they were trying to do, but it just seemed kind of convenient that after all the negative press that they've got, that they go back and they throw a full episode of Mando, that there's the only relation to Book of Boba Fett is Fennec Shand at the end, which for all intents and purposes, they could have shot this for episode 1 of the next season of Mando and then just reshot the end to include Fennec Shand just so they could drop it in here as sort of like a desperate call to, because there was so much Mandalorian history and backstory.
Yeah, I like seeing that.
I love
Mike,
it.
you know what I thought they did though? I think they did this.
Series.
I think they. Sorry, Mike. I think they did this to show the big. So I forgot how different Mando and Boba Fett were at this point. And then after seeing Mando in there, was like, oh wow, yeah, Mando's like following the rules of this and that, and Boba Fett's just kind of like, no, I am Boba Fett. I'm making my way in the galaxy, right?
The difference was, Mando grew up in the Watch. He grew up as a Mandalorian, as what are they called? I can't even think. Foundling, but Boba Fett wasn't, but Jango was.
Well, Jango actually ruled the Mandalorians in the comic book for a while, so I'm wondering if they're going to go back to that or if they're going to acknowledge that. They haven't said yet whether they're going to acknowledge the fact that Jango was the ruler for a while there. But yeah, what were we talking about there before?
No, just the fact that the Mando they dropped it in, and
Mike, I was saying I think the main reason, well, to me, was just again to show the difference of them.
It just seems so disjointed based on what we've seen so far.
It's like a Sopranos dream scene, Mike. That's what it is. It's a Sopranos dream scene. But for me, it did seem random, but again, body of work. Let's see how all 10 of the, or whatever many episodes it's going to be, and let's see how it lays.
There's 2 left.
Oh, that was my next question.
Thanks, Jimmy. Thanks for ruining my life. Thanks.
Okay.
Well, no, I needed to know that. That was going to be my next question. There's only 2 left. Okay.
There's only 2 left, so we're not going to see Grogu in Boba Fett. I think what they did is they brought him in as to join the war and to tease season 3 of Mando.
Yeah.
Because in season 3 of Mando, you're going to see him and Grogu. You're not going to see him anymore. They don't have enough time.
Last thing there, guys, for on this subject, and then we'll let everybody go because Bonzi's up next. But the rest of them, well, we'll just keep going. He owes us one. We gave him 3 hours last week when we had to cancel.
No,
and anyone who, just as a reminder, who had to tune in after we canceled, Chris went all in on Daredevil last week, and it did real big numbers. So everyone, check out.
That was great. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Check out the Daredevil episode. All right, what was our favorite? Mike, I know you're hating on it, but what was your favorite part? What was your favorite part about what was your favorite part about this latest episode? Is there anything that you liked about it?
I did. Don't get me wrong. I love Mandalorian. I love Mando. This episode, had it been part of the Mandalorian series, I would have been like, everything that Chris has taught me about Mandalorian history was given to me in a beautiful, dumbed down, easy to digest version.
Wasn't it? That's a good call, Mike. That's a good point. It was, yeah.
Although I will say, every time I hear it's Tar Vizsla, is that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. It sounds like an English Premier League team, like the Tottenham Spurs versus Tar Vizsla. Right. I thought just it was brilliant. The history, the whole learning the fact that the Darksaber, you can't fight with it. You have to let it sort of guide you, which goes back to the principle of the Jedis. The Jedis didn't get their lightsabers until they could control their emotions. And you saw when it's past Vizsla or past pre-Vizsla? Pause Vizsla. What he was having the same issues. He couldn't swing the sword. He couldn't wield it properly. Mm-hmm. I thought that stuff is brilliant. So good. Even the haha funny with the taking the starfighter out there and getting busted by the X-Wing. Hey, weren't you that guy that thing? Just some really cute moments and callbacks to Phantom Menace. Just the simple, it's the little details. And this apparently, there's a great video. I think Screen Crush did a video on this of the 97 Easter eggs in this episode.
Yeah, Screen Crush is pretty good. I like it too.
That's Todd Kearns. Todd Kearns is a go-to. Todd Kearns, by the way, his go-to was this show, but now he's on Screen Crush. Yeah, hey, Todd, come on, Todd.
I give him props because there was some great stuff in there that I went back and watched the episode. Loved it. I loved the episode. In the Book of Boba Fett, you had me going one way with this show, and after episode 4, I even cheered Danny Trejo coming in as the Rancor keeper. But then you hit episode 5, and it screams to me, "Yeah, we're losing people. Let's bring Mando back so that we hook them in for the last couple of episodes."
But they would have filmed it before that conclusion, Michael.
Would they have, or would they have already filmed episode 1 of season 3?
Yeah.
Like I said, you can
Who
easily
knows?
chop
They
that
bring
in.
it in, they chop it in. But yeah, fair enough. Jimmy, what did you like?
But one thing where I don't agree with you that this could have been a Mando that they dropped in was the introduction of BD-1. The little droid that was helping him
with the one
underneath the ship.
Yeah,
because it's kind of funny how they introduced that droid, and then they announce that they're bringing in the video game with him in it again. They're bringing a sequel in. So
hey, Jimmy,
that's one of the little Easter eggs. But that was so. That's one thing. But I think I loved it because it's building his army together. Because this whole series has been building an army. Now he has the Rancor. Now he has a Black K.
Black T in there, man, or Black K in there, yeah.
Yeah, we got Black K. We got Fennec Shand. We got the speeder bikers. We've got this army that he's building, and they're hinting at getting more bounty hunters. So it's gonna be that is where it all came into. Is plus Mando owed him. He helped him get Grogu back. So, that's why he said, okay, I'm in, I'll do it. I'll do it for nothing. That not only shows that the respect that Mando had for Boba Fett, but also the whole character of, they're bringing in bounty hunters.
Yeah.
That's just,
I love the race, the subtle little when they were testing out the ship, and then
Beggar's Canyon,
Beggar's Canyon. But then he goes through there, and then you can see where the barricade was dropped, like when little Annie ran over the barricade. That's still on the ground. Like,
I didn't realize.
Awesome.
I didn't realize until this episode that when they were doing the pod race, they were doing it through Beggar's Canyon. I had no idea.
And we saw a Womp Rat. Did we not see a Womp Rat in this episode too?
I think so.
Yeah, there was a Womp Rat.
Yeah, that's funny. So
does that also kind of tease at the fact that they might be bringing in Aura Singh, or is she dead?
That's a good question. I would love to see Aura Singh in there.
Because she was watching the race, the pod race through there, that area during episode 1 of Star Wars episode.
Jimmy, we'll have to check Screen Crush.
And do we get that kid back? I love how he said when he hopped in the ship, he said wizard.
Yeah,
which again called
Wizard
back
Annie
to that kid. Yeah, maybe we see him, the Annie's buddy from. When did Tatooine become the place to be? Like I thought everybody wanted off Tatooine, and now everybody it is the center of the galactic universe right now.
But it's the Outer Rim, and these two series are not actually. You don't see any of the New Republic or much of it other than the fighters, because this is the Outer Rim. This is the underbelly of the universe. Yeah. This is the stuff that you never saw in any of the Star Wars franchise, because really this is kind of. This is like the back alleys of most towns. You're seeing your gangsters and your slumlords, and
it's like it's the Daredevil of Marvel universe, man, is what it is. It's like Hell's Kitchen. You know what I mean? Like Daredevil fights in Hell's Kitchen, and this is where the bounty hunters fight. Is like the Hell's Kitchen of Star Wars. Yeah, Jim, that's a good point. Great point, buddy.
It's a big bright blur.
Well, now there's only 2 episodes left. I'm away next week. You guys are going to have to take this one solo because I got a show. I
think the 3 of us could handle it.
Yeah, who am I? I'm just an asshole on here. But don't let the palm trees fool you in the background. It's only 5 degrees here in Florida, by the way.
With Brent away, at least Chris is a lot easier than pushing the button on me, right?
It'd be my wife that would be.
I would never ever do that ever. So here's the thing. Next week, what we're gonna do, Mike. I want to hear about your Royal Rumble in a minute. Jimmy, listen, Jimmy, you've got. You were talking about it on the Blundell Network this week. You're doing some stuff for Pink Shirt Day coming up. When is that? Because I want to try to get you back on the show before
February 23rd, I believe, is Pink Shirt Day, and we have usually it's been me solo talking to a bunch of kids, and now I have a bunch of big celebrities, some gold medalists and Olympians, and it's gonna be so much fun. I'm kind of looking forward to it. I'm trying not to think about it too much because I'm starting to get nervous about it. It's going to be, and I'm used to just dealing with Edmonton, and now it sounds like I'm going to be talking to people.
Well, we got a couple things coming up on this show too. We're going to do a little fundraiser for a little kid, Leaf fan that's Chris put me onto, and we're going to get him on here and his dad, and they're going to talk about what they're doing. But what I want to do, Jimmy, is get you on maybe the week before to talk about what you're doing, so we can get it out there for you and get some information.
That'd be awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, we're here to help, buddy.
And then we'll let you go. Okay, Mike.
Yo.
You got 1 minute. Royal Rumble, go.
What can I say? St. Louis. So it was fantastic. Shouts to the Grit couple.
Yeah, they had you down there. I was looking for. I couldn't watch it, but I was looking for you to see if you're going to be in the road.
I was on hard camera side, so there's a couple of shots. But it was just a great weekend. Say what you will about the WWE, they treat peeps quite well. It was. First time to St. Louis, and it was I saw a lot of St. Louis guys. A couple of buddies of Adam's. We decided we had to go pick up some supplies for post Rumble. Adam wanted a certain bottle of whiskey. We may have stopped at a dispensary along the way for some of the other members of the party. Donuts was the other big thing. We spent 4 hours. We drove across state lines to Illinois, where I saw the greatest thing ever. There's a minor league ballpark just outside this industrial area. Right directly next to the ballpark was the dispensary.
Oh, wow.
And all we could think of was like, if your kid's playing ball, like I said, like first inning, like, hey, Jimmy, good job. Shoot peas, bud. Daddy will be back in about the 9th inning. I'm just going over there. So no, it was great fun. The show was excellent. Adam and Beth did an amazing job. Miz is a good dude,
He did. He cut a promo on My Little Alex, and when I was out with Allison Chains and Corn, he nice. He's like, "Go to bed, Alex," or whatever, and it was pretty. He was pretty all gentleman, all class. So I did a good time. I'll be in St. Louis for a show on my birthday, which coincides actually on February 23rd, Jimmy, on Pink Shirt Day. I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'll be in St. Louis on my birthday for that, and we'll try to do the whole thing. But we're going to get you on. Let's do the question, Mike. Where can we find you on?
Anywhere, I'll catch me on Leafs hockey. There you go, Chris. You can catch me on Leafs hockey.
There we go.
Kit Kat Chunky. Me and Brett Burns.
That's with that's awesome. That's
awesome.
Burnsy,
yeah. So, but otherwise, same old guys. Thanks for doing this. I feel bad because I'm like the Debbie Downer of this series, and I love Boba Fett. I'm old school Boba lover.
You got 2 episodes to make up for it.
No, I just got 2 episodes to make up for it. But Jimmy, I think you're onto something, and I can't believe I didn't see that. How they were starting to go down that, building up your squad for the big. What was that?
Chris was attacked by a cat today. Chris was attacked by a cat.
Yeah.
Beans isn't having it. Beans doesn't want to be on the TV.
Beans some crazy force stuff going on. But no, I was just saying, Jimmy, now that makes sense. And if next episode, if we see a Bosk or a Dengar or something like that, would be then you got me back, at least for the finale. So
what a guy. Thanks, Michael.
Thanks, boys. We'll talk again next week.
Thanks, buddy. Jimmy, where can we find you online and all the rest of it, buddy?
Okay, my Twitter is at JPWait957, and my podcast is on the Dean Blondell Network too.
That's right, awesome, Jedi buddy. Jimmy. Check him out.
Jedi Jimmy podcast.
Absolutely destroying the land with it. You go Thursdays, right?
Thursdays, yeah.
Yeah, awesome,
beautiful.
Man.
Beautiful. I was saying, Brent's on the road, man. So you're gonna have to come and co-host a show with me here, my friend, and we'll have some fun.
I already am on the road. I'm freezing cold in fucking Florida, of all places. Anyways,
that's weird.
Jimmy,
guy.
Love what you're doing, man. And
buddy, great points tonight, man. I really love having you on the show. You made some really good points. It's great. I love hearing the Han Solo one's great. That's what I like to hear. Is those ideas where you're like, whoa, yeah.
Could you imagine? Like, who would have seen Luke showing up at the end of Mando, though?
That blew my mind.
You have to do some work on old Han there. Make them look.
They will. I've heard no, they'll do it, man. They'll do it.
But think about it. They did the de-aging, and they just hired that guy that redid the de-aging of Luke to Lucasfilm. too. Like, because remember in Mando, they did one thing, and this other guy on, I can't remember what it was on, deepfake.
Mm-hmm.
He did a better job of doing the de-aging that Lucasfilm hired him.
Yeah.
So they could do the same thing to Han.
The deepfake
And then
stuff.
Chewie would be easy to do. You bring Chewie back, no problem, right?
You just give him a haircut.
Yeah, you just bring Chewie, and then him and Black King scrap.
And it's already a different actor. So
yeah. It'd be a total like Western gunslinger moment. It'd be really cool.
Anyway, would be.
Love it.
Thanks,
it,
Jimmy.
Great
See you
talking
next.
to you, Jimmy.
See you in a bit,
All right,
buddy.
see ya.
Thanks, buddy. Bye. Woo.
All right, there we go. That was
Busy
a long
show,
one.
buddy.
Wow, we
Busy
did that, yep.
show. Lots and lots going on. Huge thanks to Travis Orndorff.
Yeah, thanks,
some
Travis,
kind of
buddy.
wonderful, and paying tribute to his late father, Mr. Wonderful. Amazing stuff. And as he said, the greatest heel of all time. So there you go, in his opinion. And you've got some news, and we'll finish up with this.
Oh, I already talked about it. The comic
that's
book. Yeah, we
one.
got the deal coming up.
That's
so
2, but number 3. Look at that cover, friends. Look at that.
It's dark comedy on this one, man. Dark comedy.
Right.
That guy there, man, he is like if the Ultimate Warrior and Negan from Walking Dead
Came together. Look at that.
Yeah, that's
Make a great
what that
wrestling figure
character's
too.
like.
Make a great character too. So
Yeah.
that'd be awesome.
Bitchin'.
That, my friends, is a long Kids on the Escalator.
That was.
podcast.
Hopefully, do you think my folks made
we've
it through that one?
We've done longer. It's an hour and 26 we're looking at. That's okay. We've done longer. Bonzi's live right now on the network. Make sure you check him out, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning us up. Kidsontheescalator.com right there. Make sure you check that out. Leave us a voicemail. We are going to give away this next week. So there you go. Chris's thing. And everybody, thank you so much. That is Kids on the Escalator podcast for another week. Dr. Johnny Fever, rest in peace, man.
This is for you, buddy.
Good times.
Bad dudes. Good night.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.